Today is my birthday, and I can't wait to get home and celebrate. However, my mother-in-law, Barbara, has a knack for calling at the worst times, and today is no different. Sadly, today is also my mother's funeral. Despite knowing this in advance, Barbara kept calling repeatedly. I thought it must be urgent, so I answered, but I couldn't step away and had to put her on speaker. Her voice echoed throughout the venue, and my father, John, started trembling. Things quickly spiraled out of control. My name is Naomi, and I'm 43 this year. I've been with my husband, Alex, since our student days, and we've been married for 17 years. Alex is usually reserved and doesn't talk much, so sometimes it's hard to know what he's thinking. But I know he cares about me deeply. Whenever Barbara harassed me, Alex always stood by my side. Barbara is a difficult person, and even my parents opposed our marriage because of her, especially my mother. She would say, "Marriage isn't just about love, it involves the whole family. I'm worried you might suffer in the future." Despite my mother's advice, I married Alex, but Barbara's harassment was hard to bear. Every time I consulted Alex, he would speak to her, but she would just mumble under her breath when no one else was around. When I couldn't take it anymore, my mother would reassure me, saying, "It's okay, you'd have me and Alex, don't you?" A few days ago, my dear mother passed away. I was devastated. I couldn't eat or sleep. Alex took care of me, handled the household chores, and took time off work to arrange the funeral. On the day of the funeral, he took a day off to help my father, Michael, and me. Even during this time, Barbara kept harassing me, calling relentlessly with demands like going shopping or buying rice, completely disregarding my situation. I eventually went shopping with her just once. Barbara knew about my mother's death. She had experienced the loss of her own parents, but still treated me poorly, making me dislike her even more. Alex always takes my side, but Barbara resents that too. After Alex confronted her, she called me and said, "Your child has grown up like this. It must be the parents' fault," and hung up without letting me respond. My mother raised me with love and sometimes strictness, and I'm proud of her. I've never spoken ill of her. I know I need to do something about Barbara, but before I could figure it out, the day of my mother's funeral arrived. It was the last day. I could see my mother, and I wanted to give her a grand farewell. I asked Barbara if she was going to attend, but she didn't want to. To be honest, I didn't want Barbara to come to the funeral either, so it worked out for me. She didn't even send a condolence telegram or offer any condolence money. I already knew she was that kind of person, so it didn't bother me much, but it was typical Barbara. I'm really sorry, but I'm truly embarrassed by her behavior. She wasn't like this before my father passed away. Alex apologized, but I told him I prefer to keep my distance from her as much as possible. Despite sharing my feelings many times, Barbara keeps reaching out, which is exhausting. Alex, stuck in the middle, must be having an even harder time. At my mother's funeral, the attendees included me, Alex, my father, my mother's relatives, and Alex's father, James. James and Barbara are divorced and don't get along well, but both have a good relationship with me and Alex. Barbara has always had a bad attitude. James often said, "If you ask me why I married her, I can only say it was a spur-of-the-moment decision." When I told him about my mother's passing, he responded, "I'm sorry for your loss. I only met your mom a few times, but she was wonderful. Of course, I'll attend the funeral." On the day of the funeral, as the service began, I made sure my phone wouldn't make any sounds, but I left it on vibrate just in case. A while after the funeral started, my phone began to vibrate. Thinking it might be urgent, I checked, and it was Barbara. Despite not wanting to, I answered, "Hello, what's up?" "What's up? You took forever to answer. How many times did I call you?" "I'm in the middle of my mother's funeral. If it's not urgent, can you call me back later?" "You're giving me attitude. Do you even remember what day it is today?" "It's my mother's funeral. I can't think of anything else right now. Today is my birthday. Did you forget? Come back home quickly and prepare for the celebration." I was so surprised that I accidentally dropped my phone. After picking it up, I confirmed it was indeed Barbara, demanding I celebrate her birthday. "I'm at my mother's funeral. I'll prepare for the celebration after it's over, so please wait for me." I was astounded by her words, but I hung up and returned to the funeral. Alex asked if there was trouble, but I told him it was nothing. Throughout the service, Barbara kept calling, but I ignored her. It was probably just her telling me to come back quickly, which I could deal with after the funeral. I hadn't thought about celebrating Barbara's birthday at all, given how she treated me. Expecting me to celebrate her birthday now seemed incredibly audacious. Then, just as the funeral was about to end, something in my bag pressed against my phone screen, answering Barbara's call on speakerphone. "When are you coming back? Today is my birthday. Hurry up and come back to prepare for the celebration." Her voice echoed throughout the venue. Realizing this was bad, I tried to hang up, but my father, Michael, nearby, asked, "What's going on?" Was that Barbara? I couldn't lie, so I explained everything. My father, usually calm, started trembling with anger. He has a personality that drives people into a corner until they hit rock bottom, and right now, he was incredibly angry. "Give me your phone," my dad demanded, snatching it from my hand while Barbara was still shouting. As soon as she heard his voice, she suddenly became silent. "Hello, this is Naomi's father, Michael. Is this Barbara?" "Oh, Michael, it's been a while. You were shouting quite loudly just now, but it's your birthday today, isn't it? Happy birthday. By the way, do you know what day it is today?" I looked at my father's face. Though he was smiling, his eyes were not. This was his truly angry expression. I had hardly ever seen him angry, but once I witnessed him getting furious when a man bumped into my mother on the street and then berated her instead of apologizing. My dad, who is about 6'3" and weighs around 200 pounds, walked back, placed his hand on the man's shoulder, and asked, "Do you need something from my wife?" The man froze and then ran away. My dad's shaved head makes him look intimidating to anyone. Barbara knows what he's like, having met him before. During our family meetings, she once belittled me, and my dad confronted her, saying, "Do you think my daughter is a failure? How could someone like you give birth to a wonderful man like Alex?" That made the atmosphere turn sour instantly. My dad is always on my side, but he can be a bit too honest. "We're in the middle of a funeral, right?" Barbara said. "I know that because you told me earlier. The living are more important than the deceased. Just go buy some steak or something for the birthday celebration." Since he was on speakerphone, Barbara's voice resounded throughout the venue. Everyone was watching nervously to see what my dad would say next. Contrary to expectations, he said, "Understood. The funeral will be over soon, so I'll tell Naomi to head straight there." I was so surprised I blurted out, "Wait a minute, Dad, I'm not going." My dad put his index finger to his lips and gestured for me to be quiet. Maybe he had a plan. Even after the call ended, he didn't say anything, and we resumed the funeral, which finally ended around 5 p.m. "Hey, Dad, I really don't want to celebrate her birthday." "Don't worry, I have a proper plan, Naomi. You just need to drive. Can we stop by my house before heading to the supermarket?" I felt uneasy, not knowing what my dad was thinking, but I had absolute trust in him. Even though I wasn't convinced, I decided to follow his instructions. Alex, who had taken time off work, went back to work right after the funeral and didn't come with us to Barbara's house. At the supermarket, my dad bought a cake and steaks, then returned to the car with a large envelope from the house. "The funeral just ended, and I'm really sorry to ask this of you, but could we go to Barbara's house next?" Judging from the cake and steak in my dad's hands, it seemed he intended to celebrate Barbara's birthday. I told him I didn't want to, so why was he trying to accommodate her request? The uneasiness didn't go away, but we'd come this far, and there was no turning back. I gripped the steering wheel tightly and drove towards Barbara's house. "Dad, are you really planning to celebrate her birthday?" "Yeah, that's the plan. But I also intend to give Barbara a piece of my mind," he replied. It seemed he had something in mind after all. When I asked him what he was thinking, he just said, "You'll see when we get there. It'll be clear once we arrive," and didn't give me a straight answer. So I decided not to ask anything more until we reached Barbara's house. It took about an hour to drive from the funeral to Barbara's house. When we arrived, my dad took the cake, steaks, and the large envelope and rang the doorbell. Barbara showed up at the front door, surprised to see my dad. "Oh, so you came too, Michael." "Yes, I heard it's your birthday. It's not much, but I brought some food and a gift. May I come in?" Barbara hesitated at first, seeing my dad eager to enter. But once she realized she was getting a feast and a gift, she let us in without hesitation. "Was it really okay for you to prepare a feast and a gift for me?" Barbara's tone changed completely. She started speaking in a sweet voice. I grilled the steaks and arranged them on the dining table, along with the cake. "Wow, the steaks and the cake look delicious. Shall we eat?" "Before we eat, please wait a moment," my dad interrupted just as Barbara was about to dig in with her knife and fork. I was curious about what he was going to say, but Barbara was visibly frustrated. "What is it? Hurry up or the steak will get cold." "This won't take long. Here's your present," my dad said, handing her the envelope. "What's this?" she asked, looking puzzled. "It's a land title deed," he replied. For a moment, Barbara seemed not to understand, but upon checking the contents of the envelope, she froze. Barbara lived in a single-family home, but the land was owned by her father. He had inherited several pieces of land and rented them out to friends and relatives. Barbara was one of those people. When I married Alex, the land was rented to her. After Barbara divorced James, she lived alone in this house, but the owner was still my father. "What does this mean?" "I thought you might have forgotten, but I just wanted to remind you that I own this land and house. You've been living here out of my goodwill, but I've decided to reconsider due to recent events." My father had decided to stop renting the house to Barbara. He figured she couldn't leave right away, so he was giving her 1 week. 1 week? There's no way I can leave in such a short time. Just try to make me leave. I won't go. "Is that so? Well, I have other plans in mind. What are you going to do?" Honestly, I had no idea what my father was thinking. I was surprised enough that my usually gentle father was this angry and telling her to leave, but now I was wondering what he would do next. My father started making a call. Judging from the conversation, it seemed like he was talking to a lawyer. It appeared he was trying to forcibly evict Barbara from the house. "Hey, wait a minute. Are you really trying to kick me out just because of that? It's just a funeral, right? It wasn't a big deal when you guys left halfway through." Hearing this, my father trembled with rage. "I think Alex and James are really good people, but I can't forgive you. I said I'd wait a week, but I want you to leave right now. I will report you for trespassing," he declared sternly. "What you've done is truly unforgivable. That's why I agree with my father's decision." I added, "Trespassing. I live here, you know. Don't you get it yet? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that you've been living off of us." Barbara tried to argue, but being someone who always cares about what others think, she might have thought it would be bad to actually get reported. So she left the house with only the bare minimum of her belongings. After that, Barbara went to a friend's house, but was turned away. She is known for saying unpleasant things to friends and neighbors, so no one wanted to take her in. Unable to be accepted by anyone, Barbara reluctantly decided to go to her sister's house. Jessica, Barbara's older sister, has always been incredibly kind to me. "Naomi, I know it's been tough for you. I've lived with Barbara since we were little, so I know what she's like. If you ever run into any trouble, don't hesitate to tell me, okay?" She was always considerate of my feelings and kept in touch. informing me whenever Barbara visited her place and giving me updates on how she was doing. Barbara, despite her complaints about me and our father, would be in trouble if she lost her place to live. She's desperately trying to mend her relationship with Jessica, though all their conversations are transparent to us. Jessica told me, "Naomi, you and your father probably don't want anything to do with Barbara anymore, right? Don't worry. We'll take care of everything from here on. We'll let you know if there's any progress." Barbara is scattered, so it's impossible she has any savings. Even if she receives a pension, she ends up spending it all. Since she has no one else to rely on, she eventually ended up living with Jessica. Jessica lives on the same property as her sons, so even though it's just the two elderly women living together, someone could come to their aid if needed. Finally, getting Barbara out of the house gave us peace of mind. We sent her belongings to Jessica's place and put the house up for sale. Since the property was in a prime location, it sold quickly, and Barbara was out for good. However, she sometimes calls me saying things like, "Come pick me up quickly." I hate living with my sister. She makes me do everything and always makes snide remarks. If you feel sorry for me, help me out. It sounds like you're going through exactly what I went through with you. You used to do the same things to me, Barbara. I'm not going through that again. And Alex agrees with me. I replied. After that, I hung up and ignored all her calls. Since then, I've been living happily with Alex. I proposed to my father that he live with us, but he declined, saying, "I'm still perfectly capable of living on my own. Plus, I've got enough funds set aside for my retirement. If I can't live by myself anymore, I'll just move into a facility." Alex supported the idea, but we couldn't force him. In the end, nothing changed, and I continued to live with just Alex. However, one thing has changed since then. Alex has started to open up more about his feelings and thoughts. After the whole incident with Barbara, I went through a period of emotional instability. I couldn't cook, and stress-induced insomnia made it hard for me to concentrate. A doctor told me, "Naomi, you must have been under a lot of stress. I can tell you've been holding a lot in." Right now, Alex's support is crucial, so he needs to make an effort not to worry you. Since that day, Alex has been talking to me more. He'd make food requests like, "I feel like eating an omelette today. I'll go to the supermarket, so can you make it?" Sometimes he'd say, "We haven't been going out much lately. How about we go for a drive for a change of scenery?" And take me to a beach a couple of hours away by car. I can really feel that he's making an effort to think about me and what I need. Even though he's not great at expressing his feelings, I truly appreciate his attempts to show his love for me. It's probably all thanks to the incident with Barbara. As terrible as that experience was, ranking among the top 3 worst times of my life, it ultimately helped me move toward a happier life. I like to think that a higher power has been watching over me, rewarding my past deeds with happiness now. Just like before, I want to live a life that I can be proud of without feeling ashamed in front of anyone.